Hey guys, tonight we travel back to an age before humankind, before the first story, the first word, or the first spark of language. Close your eyes and imagine it. Not the wheel, not fire, not writing, but something far older. Picture instead the turning point of Earth's history, the cataclysm that erased the great rulers of the land. But in this story, the meteor misses. The skies stay clear, and the dinosaurs continue their reign, reshaping the destiny of every creature that follows. 66 million years ago, an asteroid the size of a mountain tore through the atmosphere and slammed into the Yucatan Peninsula. In our reality, that collision ended the reign of the dinosaurs. But what if it missed by the slimmest cosmic margin? What if the skies burned, but the Earth endured, and the dinosaurs lived on? In this alternate timeline, there is no sudden winter, no endless night to starve the giants. The forests remain lush, the seas still thunder with leviathans, and the land remains ruled by scales and teeth. Mammals, small and fragile, still skitter in the underbrush, but their future is postponed indefinitely. The Age of Dinosaurs does not end. It transforms. Imagine it, the great tyrant lizards growing ever more cunning, the bird-like hunters evolving sharper intelligence, the armored giants adapting new ways to defend against ever fiercer predators. With every passing millennium, evolution chisels new wonders from ancient blueprints. And across millions of years, the stage is set for a strange and breathtaking possibility. A world where humans rise not alone, but in the shadow of living dinosaurs. Our story begins here, in this untouched wilderness, where thunder lizards still shake the ground and pterosaurs still darken the skies. It begins with a simple question. If dinosaurs never went extinct, what kind of world would we inherit? And what kind of species would we become? The first centuries after the asteroid misses are almost uneventful in the grand sweep of time. Forests continue to stretch from pole to pole, steamy jungles covering much of the planet. The herbivores thrive, hadrosaurs in herds that stretch like rolling tides, sauropods moving like mountains with legs, ankylosaurs trudging along armored like living fortresses. Predators follow them with ancient patience. Tyrannosaurs, abelisaurs, and dromaeosaurs, sharp-eyed and relentless. But unseen in this lush stage is a subtle transformation. Without the extinction event to reset the balance, dinosaurs continue to diversify. Some grow smaller, learning to move between the niches mammals once hoped to claim. Others grow more intelligent, their brains swelling generation by generation, not into human-like thought just yet, but into sharper problem-solving, better communication, and hunting strategies that echo with eerie familiarity. The mammals remain, but as shadows. Rodents, insectivores, small burrowers, they are survivors, yes, but not rulers. The absence of extinction means no great flowering of primates, no sudden explosion of apes, no early humans standing tall on savannas that never truly form. The forests remain too dense, the reptiles too dominant. Evolution denies our ancestors the easy road. As epochs pass, the continents drift. South America and Africa part more cleanly. India slams into Asia, birthing the Himalayas as in our reality. Climate changes, ice ages attempt to creep down, but each time the great reptilian masters adapt. Feathers thicken against cold winds. Warm-blooded metabolisms allow hunters to survive where sluggish reptiles once faltered. The dinosaurs do not fade. They conquer every biome, from steaming jungles to icy coasts. And then, the spark of something stranger still. Among the smaller bird-like predators, cooperation becomes as important as claws. Packs coordinate not only by instinct, but by signals, calls, gestures, a crude form of shared intention. Some species of dromaeosaurs learn to set ambushes, to drive prey toward traps. Intelligence, once a rare luxury, begins to spread as a survival strategy. By the 30-million-year mark, a new landscape unfolds. Forests are alive with creatures that can think a little, reason a little, and learn from each other. If you could walk through those jungles, you might find yourself watched not by beasts, but by calculating eyes. And always beneath their feet, the small mammals scurry. They wait, as if history itself is holding its breath. But will they ever get their chance? Or has evolution crowned different heirs? The stage is nearly set for the greatest contest the planet has ever seen. The clash not just of tooth and claw, but of mind and will. The earth is alive with sound. In the steaming rainforests of what will one day be South America, the air thrums with insect wings, the guttural bellows of hadrosaurs, and the shrill cries of feathered hunters. It is a place where survival demands not only strength, but cunning. The predators of this age are unlike those of our own timeline. The tyrannosaurs remain, though smaller than their monstrous ancestors, leaner, faster, tuned for precision rather than brute force. Yet even they are overshadowed by a new breed, the clever dromaeosaurs, their feathers vibrant, their eyes bright with calculation. These thinking raptors, as we might call them, are not human in intelligence, but they are something new, creatures capable of passing knowledge through generations. A successful hunting strategy is not lost when the elder dies. It is remembered, mimicked, improved. In time, this creates the first culture outside of mammals. A primitive culture, but a culture nonetheless. Imagine watching them from the underbrush, packs of 6 or 7, their movements coordinated not just by instinct, but by shared intent. One distracts the prey, another circles behind, a third waits in silence for the ambush signal, a cry too complex to be mistaken for chance. They are not simply reacting to the world, they are shaping it. Herbivores respond in kind. Ankylosaurs form defensive phalanxes, their armored tails swinging in practiced arcs. Sauropods no longer wander aimlessly, but move in tight-knit groups, protecting calves within a circle of legs like a living fortress. Evolution has given them memory, generational memory, passed down in behavioral cues, in a quiet language of posture and sound. Across the oceans, other dramas unfold. In Asia, small, crow-sized dinosaurs evolve sharper problem-solving abilities, using tools in crude forms, sticks to flush insects, rocks to break shells. Not true inventors, but pioneers. The forests echo with tapping stones and snapping twigs, the first experiments of minds unshackled by mere instinct. Meanwhile, the mammals remain trapped in their quiet obscurity. They are clever in their own way, scent-driven, nocturnal, opportunistic. But in this world, the niches of intelligence, strategy, and tool use are already being filled by reptilian rivals. What chance does a furtive primate have against a predator that can plan, coordinate, and communicate? And yet, life is not a straight path. For every rise, there is a fall. Volcanic winters sweep the globe, sea levels surge and retreat, continents shift. Time is relentless, and in each upheaval, species vanish while others adapt. But the broad pattern holds. Dinosaurs not only survive, they flourish. By the time 60 million years have passed, the planet is no longer merely the age of dinosaurs. It is something richer, a world of reptilian intelligence spread across continents, competing for dominance in ways that will soon echo eerily close to our own future. And so the question sharpens. If humanity is not destined to rule, who will take our place? The rivers carve valleys, the mountains grind against the sky, and the ages roll on. Time is merciless, yet it is also a patient sculptor. In this world, it molds not just bones and scales, but minds. In the lush basin that will one day become the Amazon, the dromaeosaurs continue to evolve. Their feathers become more elaborate, no longer just for warmth or display, but as subtle signals, patterns that communicate rank within the pack, readiness to hunt, even intent. They are no longer mere predators. They are social architects. Their brains, once little more than instinct machines, have grown folds and ridges, weaving new pathways. They invent rituals, dances of movement and sound before a hunt, shared cries of triumph after a kill, gestures that soothe conflict within the group. What begins as survival slowly becomes tradition. Tradition becomes identity. Far to the north, in the swamps of what will become North America, another lineage rises. Small, tool-using theropods, creatures no larger than a fox, begin to manipulate their environment in earnest. They select stones not just for shape, but for function, teaching their offspring which ones are best for cracking eggs or digging into termite mounds. The forest floor becomes littered with discarded tools, each one an echo of a mind testing its limits. In Asia, larger feathered hunters develop a strange habit. They hoard bright stones, bones with unusual shapes, shells that catch the light. At first it seems like simple attraction, but as generations pass, patterns emerge. The hoards are arranged deliberately, with symmetry, with intent. Could it be the first stirrings of art? Meanwhile, the herbivores adapt in parallel. Hadrosaur herds develop elaborate call systems, a symphony of trumpets and bellows that warn of danger, signal food, or gather the young. To an outside observer, it resembles language. Not words, not sentences, but meaning carried by sound, complex enough to bind thousands together. The world is alive not just with life, but with thought. Thought in its infancy, awkward, dangerous, but undeniably present. And beneath the shadows, the mammals still scurry. Small primates evolve keen eyes and dexterous fingers, but their role remains limited. Whenever they climb too high, whenever their groups grow too bold, they are cut down by their reptilian overlords. In this world, evolution has no need of humanity. Millions more years slip by. The earth grows colder, ice caps spread, and resources grow scarce. This hardship, instead of breaking the intelligent dinosaurs, forges them sharper. The cleverest survive. The most cooperative thrive. Those who can plan not just for today but for tomorrow, shape the destiny of their kind. By the time the calendar of deep time turns toward the present, a startling truth emerges. Dinosaurs have walked the long path toward civilization, not in stone cities or bronze tools yet, but in shared memory, innovation, and symbolic thought. The question is no longer if they will rise, but when. The earth tilts, the seasons swing, and the endless march of ages presses forward. What was once scattered brilliance, pack coordination here, tool use there, ritual dances in hidden valleys, begins to converge. The clever dromaeosaurs of South America are the first to cross an invisible threshold. They discover fire not by accident, but by observation. For millions of years they have watched lightning strike the forests, watched flames devour the trees, and leave behind prey made easy to scavenge. At first, they follow the burn paths, feasting on carcasses. But in time, they learn something more daring, to carry smoldering branches, to keep the flame alive within guarded nests of stone and ash. Fire becomes not just a tool, but a totem. Packs gather around it, performing their ritual dances in its glow. It keeps the night predators away, roasts flesh, hardens wood. The flames turn these feathered hunters into masters not only of the hunt, but of the landscape. Far to the north, the tool makers of North America begin to weave fibers into snares, to use sharpened sticks as spears. They select nesting grounds deliberately, clearing underbrush with stone and fire. They do not simply inhabit the forest, they manage it. On the Great Plains of Asia, the hoarding species refine their collections. The bones and stones they once arranged in patterns become shrines, passed down from one generation to the next. Their gatherings grow larger, their dances more complex. Something ancient stirs here, something that we in our own history would one day call religion. And what of the herbivores? The hadrosaurs, those chorus beasts of the river valleys, begin to domesticate their own kind of tradition. Their herds form permanent migratory paths, returning to the same nesting grounds year after year. They modify the land, clearing paths with their great bodies, spreading seeds through purposeful grazing. In their way, they shape ecosystems as deliberately as farmers. The mammals remain suppressed, but not entirely erased. Small primates scurry through the trees of Africa, chattering in the shadows of reptilian overlords. Some learn to mimic the calls of their predators, warning their groups of danger. Others experiment with stone chips in secret, far from the watchful eyes of feathered hunters. They are not yet ready to rise, but they have not yet fallen completely either. By this point, the world is alive with sparks. Fire glows in the jungle nights, tools clatter against bone and shell, rituals echo across the plains. A dozen evolutionary experiments in intelligence now coexist, each competing, each pushing the others forward. It is no longer the age of dinosaurs as nature once wrote it. It is the age of minds, minds in feathered skulls, eyes like jewels that see not only what is, but what could be. The first proto-civilizations are stirring, and with them comes the promise and peril of a destiny our kind never knew. The dawn of settlement begins quietly, almost invisibly. It is not a sudden leap from wilderness to city, but a slow weaving of life into place. In the steaming basins of South America, the firekeepers establish themselves along riverbanks. They choose clearings not only for safety but for resources: water to drink, fish to catch, clay to shape. Their camps are not abandoned after the hunt. They are maintained, tended, returned to. Over generations, these clearings become permanent. The jungle, once an endless sea of green, begins to hold islands of firelight that do not fade. Here, they dig shallow pits lined with clay to store meat. They arrange stones into circles, not just for ritual, but for boundary, for territory. Families, once only temporary, become clans bound to these sacred fires. In North America, the toolmakers mirror this change in their own way. Their settlements cluster near flint quarries and rivers rich with fish. They sharpen stones into spearheads, chip shells into knives, grind bone into needles. Their shelters are framed from fallen branches, covered in woven leaves, repaired each season. Slowly, these shelters become more than nests. They become homes. The hoarding species of Asia take a different path. Their shrines grow larger, collections spanning whole clearings, bones arranged in towering spirals, stones stacked into deliberate cairns. These places attract multiple packs who gather not just to worship but to trade. Bright feathers, unusual shells, crafted tools. The shrine settlements are not homes, but centers of exchange, and through exchange, ideas spread faster than ever before. And then, the most startling leap of all: domestication. In South America, firekeepers begin to capture smaller reptiles, not to eat but to use. They keep quick-footed lizards as alarm animals, their shrieks warning of intruders. They guard egg clutches of semi-domesticated hadrosaurs, ensuring food supply for leaner seasons. This is not farming as we know it, but it is the first deliberate shaping of another species for benefit. The world is shifting. In the great timeline of life, the dinosaurs are no longer just creatures of instinct. They are builders, keepers, creators. But with permanence comes conflict. Settlements claim land. Fires devour forests. Resources, once endless, grow scarce where too many gather. And so, for the first time, war enters the Age of Dinosaurs. It begins in whispers, a pack of firekeepers raiding a rival clan's food pit, a shrine torn down by outsiders, a tool-making tribe driven from its quarry. But soon the whispers grow into roars. Stone spear meets feathered flesh. Flames are turned from hearth to weapon. The world has crossed a new threshold. Civilization is not only about creation, it is about destruction too. And in this crucible of conflict, the first true societies of dinosaurs are forged. The first wars of the dinosaurs are not the apocalyptic clashes of later ages. They are small, brutal, and close to the ground. Skirmishes fought over waterholes, hunting grounds, and sacred fires. Yet, like sparks carried on dry wind, they spread. In South America, the firekeepers fight in disciplined packs, their coordination sharpened by centuries of cooperative hunting. They wield sharpened sticks hardened in flame, striking from the underbrush, retreating, regrouping. Their battles are not chaos. They are rehearsed, almost ritualistic. Victory is not just survival, but dominance, marked by stolen firebrands and seized territories. In North America, the toolmakers perfect their weapons. Flint-tipped spears pierce scales, stone axes crack bone. They learn to shape long shafts for throwing, increasing the reach of their strikes. For the first time, death comes from a distance. Raiding parties form, testing the strength of neighbors, forcing weaker tribes into exile or subjugation. In Asia, the shrine builders fight differently. Their gatherings, once peaceful exchanges, now draw rival packs who clash not just for resources but for symbols. A shrine toppled is not merely a loss of stone and bone, it is a humiliation, a shattering of identity. Battles erupt around these monuments, and for the first time, war becomes tied to meaning. But even as violence spreads, so too does alliance. Firekeeper clans form federations, bound together by rituals around shared bonfires. Tool-making tribes trade obsidian blades for fresh fish, forging networks of mutual reliance. Shrine builders, ever drawn to their monuments, create neutral grounds where even enemies might barter. Culture and conflict grow hand in hand. Where one settlement falls, another adapts. Where one tradition is broken, another replaces it with something stronger. Songs emerge, long rhythmic cries that recount victories and warn of treachery. Feathers are dyed with crushed plants to mark allegiance. Symbols carved into stone become the first banners, carried into battle to rally the clans. Over time, the very idea of territory transforms. Land is no longer just a feeding ground, it is identity, inheritance, something to be defended at all costs. For the first time in history, species other than our own are willing to die, not just for survival, but for pride. The mammals, once unnoticed, now scurry nervously at the edges of this escalating world. Small primates watch from the trees as feathered warriors clash in the valleys below. They learn caution, they learn to avoid the fire-lit camps, they learn silence, and yet, some also learn. They watch how tools are used, how flames are carried, how bones are shaped. The shadows are no longer empty, they are witnesses. Civilization has begun its march, and it is no longer fragile. It is relentless, driven by fire and blood. The Age of Dinosaurs has entered its iron dawn, though no iron has yet been forged. The wars rage for centuries, but from their ashes rise something greater than endless raids. Conflict forces innovation, and innovation reshapes the world. The Firekeepers are the first to settle deeply into permanence. Having mastered flame, they learn to wield it not just for war, but for cultivation. By burning clearings and returning each season, they discover that certain plants grow stronger in the nutrient-rich soil. Seeds dropped near settlements sprout reliably. What begins as accident becomes intention. They do not yet farm in rows, but they guide the growth of fruits and ferns, of starchy roots and grain-like plants that will sustain them through lean times. The toolmakers, ever practical, advance in parallel. They fashion grinding stones to process seeds, mortars to crush nuts, baskets to store surplus. They dig pits lined with woven reeds to preserve food against rot. Slowly, the uncertainty of the hunt gives way to the stability of planned harvests. Food is no longer just taken from the land, it is shaped. In Asia, the shrine builders take a different path. They raise their monuments higher, stacking stones into towers, carving elaborate spirals that reach toward the sky. These are not homes, but symbols, the beating hearts of their societies. Around them, markets grow, where toolmakers and firekeepers traveling from afar bring goods to trade. For the first time, settlements link not only through war and migration, but through economy, and with food surplus comes hierarchy. Among firekeepers, the keepers of flame are revered as leaders, the ones who guard the sacred spark. Among toolmakers, the best artisans rise in status, their skill granting them authority. Among shrine builders, the guardians of monuments gain power, claiming to interpret meaning in the arrangements of bone and stone. The world shifts. No longer do packs wander aimlessly through the forests. They build storage pits. They raise defensive walls of timber and stone. They mark their territory with banners and carvings. Villages emerge, primitive, rough, but unmistakably different from the wilderness that birthed them. And with villages comes memory. Oral traditions, passed from elders to hatchlings, become more elaborate. Stories of great battles, of gods who speak through fire and stone, of ancestors who once roamed freely without hunger, begin to shape identity. These are not just creatures of instinct anymore. They are historians, philosophers, dreamers. In South America, an innovation as radical as fire emerges. Firekeepers experiment with taming small hadrosaurs, not just for food but for labor. Juveniles, raised within settlements, are used to trample clearings, haul logs, even guard perimeters. It is the first hint of animal domestication beyond alarm lizards. The partnership between predator and herbivore, once unthinkable, becomes reality. The mammals watch all this in silence. From the trees, from the burrows, from the shadows, they witness creatures far older than themselves, shaping the land in ways they could never have imagined. And in that watching, a new path opens. Some mimic, some adapt, some learn. A hidden rivalry brews, invisible for now, but inevitable. The earth, once ruled by tooth and claw alone, is now ruled by thought, by fire, by seed, by stone. Civilization in scales has taken its first true breath. The age of dinosaurs has become the age of kingdoms. The world grows louder. Where once the nights of the earth were filled with nothing but the cries of hunting packs, now entire valleys glow with firelight, ringing with ritual calls, with the clatter of stone on stone, with the murmured rhythms of societies being born. In the river valleys of South America, the fire keepers transform their scattered villages into something larger. Surplus food from their cultivated clearings allows populations to swell. Where one clan once held a fire circle, now 5 or 6 circles burn within sight of each other, their flames joined by beaten paths. Gradually, these clusters merge into proto-cities, guarded by palisades of timber, filled with the crackle of kilns and the bustle of daily work. Here, social order emerges. At the heart of each city is the Great Fire, tended day and night. Around it sit the leaders, the embers, chosen for their ability to manage the flame and the people. Below them are hunters, farmers, tool shapers, and those who tend the hadrosaurs that pull timber and guard the gates. Life becomes specialized, roles fixed by necessity and tradition. In North America, the tool makers evolve a different kind of city. Less bound by ritual fire, they are driven by craft. Settlements cluster around quarries, where obsidian and flint are harvested in massive operations. Entire neighborhoods dedicate themselves to knapping spearheads, shaping blades, grinding grain. Their proto-cities hum like workshops, each citizen contributing to the collective machine of survival. Authority belongs to the artisans, the master toolwrights whose knowledge keeps their people strong. In Asia, the shrine builders ascend to their height. Their stone spirals grow into towering monuments, visible for miles across the plains. Around them rise plazas, lined with smaller shrines, where markets bustle with trade. Obsidian from the west, feathers dyed from the south, dried fish from distant rivers, all converge here. Their proto-cities are not merely homes but centers of culture, where rituals, trade, and politics intertwine. The guardians of the shrines, the stone speakers, claim divine right, channeling the power of ancestors and sky. Daily life in these cities is a rhythm both alien and familiar. Hatchlings play at the edges of fire circles, imitating the cries of their elders. Farmers scatter seeds with clawed hands, then sing to the soil, believing the plants hear them. Hunters sharpen spears, not only for the kill, but for defense, ever wary of raids from rival clans. Ritual dances continue, now performed in great plazas, witnessed by hundreds, each movement carrying history encoded in muscle and feather. But with growth comes tension. City presses against city, borders blur. Trade routes spark envy as well as prosperity. The firekeepers of the south send expeditions into the north seeking obsidian. The tool makers push eastward, desperate for fertile land to support their swelling populations. The shrine builders, proud and defiant, demand tribute from traders who pass through their monuments. The first city-states rise, and with them, the first true wars of civilization. No longer are raids fought with sticks and bone. Armies march, thousands strong, bearing banners of dyed feathers, armored in hardened hides, wielding obsidian-tipped spears that glint in the sun. Siege fires devour palisades. Shrines are toppled not by nature, but by rival claws. Yet, even amidst destruction, something remarkable happens. Captured enemies are not always killed. They are absorbed, their knowledge folded into the victor's society. With every clash, ideas spread faster than trade ever could. War becomes not just ruin, but the strange engine of progress. The dinosaurs are no longer simply survivors of an ancient age. They are builders of nations, makers of cities, wielders of power that will shape the world for millions of years to come. The Age of Kingdoms has entered its storm. The Age of Kingdoms cannot last forever. City-states, proud and stubborn, grow restless within their borders. Their populations swell, their ambitions sharpen, and soon the earth trembles, not only from the march of beasts, but from the ambitions of minds. In South America, the firekeepers blaze a path of conquest. One clan, centered along a vast river delta, learns to wield fire not only for farming and defense, but for war in devastating new ways. Their warriors march with bundles of smoldering pitch, casting flaming missiles into rival walls, setting entire settlements alight. They call themselves the Children of the Ember, and under their banners of blackened feather and red dye, they begin to unite the Delta under a single flame. Their enemies, faced with fire they cannot withstand, fall one by one. Some surrender, their fires merged into the ember hearth. Others resist and are extinguished. In time, the Delta glows with a chain of burning cities, each one linked by ritual and tribute. The Children of the Ember are not just a clan, they are a kingdom, greater than any that has existed before. In North America, the toolmakers follow a different path. A city rises near a mountain rich in obsidian, its workshops producing blades sharper than any seen before. This city, known among its neighbors as the Shattered Fang, begins to dominate trade. Those who refuse to bow to its artisans find their weapons inferior, their armies defeated. Rather than burn their enemies, the Shattered Fang absorbs them through dependency, forcing entire tribes into vassalage by controlling the very tools they need to live. Across Asia, the shrine builders undergo their own transformation. One monument grows larger than all others, a spiral so vast it consumes the labor of generations. Around it, dozens of smaller cities gather, bound by faith. The Spire of Skybone, as it comes to be known, becomes the center of a theocratic empire. Its stone speakers claim divine power, asserting that the heavens themselves decree their rule. Through pilgrimage and tribute, they extend influence across the plains, their authority carried not by sword or flame, but by belief. Three great powers now rise in parallel: the Ember Kingdom, the Shattered Fang, and the Spire of Skybone. Each rules differently, through fire, through craft, through faith. Each stretches across lands wider than any pack or clan could once imagine. Each dreams of dominance. But empires, like the predators that spawned them, are never content. Borders grind against borders. Trade routes overlap. Tributes are demanded from the same towns by rival powers. The earth grows tense, like a drum stretched too tightly. And then, inevitably, the great wars begin. Armies numbering in the tens of thousands march across valleys. Sieges last for seasons. Fire pitted against stone, obsidian against scale, faith against hunger. Whole regions are scarred, forests turned to ash, rivers red with blood. But through the destruction comes something new. Captives bring strange inventions, improved weaving, advanced hunting snares, new forms of ritual song. Armies build roads to move faster, and those roads remain even after the war, linking cities long divided. Great defensive walls rise, some of which will outlast the empires that built them. From blood and ruin, the first great empire emerges. The Children of the Ember, ruthless and unrelenting, crush rival after rival until the Delta and its neighbors bow beneath a single flame. Their leaders proclaim a new order, the First Ember Dominion. It is no longer merely a kingdom, but an empire stretching beyond the horizon, with tributary cities, vassal tribes, and armies larger than any seen before. The Dominion does not just rule land, it rules time. For the first time, history itself is measured not by the cycle of seasons or migrations, but by the reign of dynasties. The dinosaurs, once rulers by accident of evolution, have become rulers by design. The age of empires has begun. The rise of the First Ember Dominion shakes the world. Its banners of flame stretch across valleys and forests, binding countless clans beneath its hearth. Yet the Dominion's reach is not uncontested. On distant continents, other powers ascend, their ambitions no less fierce. In North America, the Shattered Fang grows ever more dominant. Obsidian smiths perfect their craft, creating spearheads so sharp they can split hide with a single thrust. Workshops hum like hives, producing thousands of blades each season. Control of obsidian gives the Fang unrivaled power. Neighboring states that once resisted now bow willingly, preferring tribute to annihilation. Soon the Fang stretches across the mountains and plains, its artisans whispering of a destiny to rival the firekeepers of the south. In Asia, the Spire of Skybone rises above all other monuments, its spiral cutting into the clouds. Entire generations labor at its base, stacking stone upon stone, guided by the chants of the stone speakers. But the spire is more than a monument. It is a center of faith, a gravitational pull that binds hundreds of tribes. Pilgrims travel for months to bring offerings, swelling the city with foreign goods and ideas. The stone speakers declare their empire eternal, claiming the heavens themselves have crowned them rulers. And so, three powers dominate the known world. The Ember Dominion, forged in fire and war. The Shattered Fang, sustained by craft and trade. The Spire of Skybone, upheld by faith and monument. But the earth is never still. Trade routes begin to stretch across oceans, carried by giant rafts, lashed together with vines and guided by the stars. For the first time, emissaries of one empire reach the shores of another, and with them come awe, suspicion, and greed. The Ember Dominion covets the sharp obsidian of the Fang. The Fang fears the fiery armies of the Dominion. Both view the Spire with unease, an empire ruled not by weapons but by ideas, which can slip silently into foreign lands. Tension builds as emissaries return home with tales of rival glories. Firebrands boast of shrines taller than mountains. Stone speakers whisper of armies marching with banners of flame. Toolwrights warn of faith that can break loyalty without a blade drawn. And then comes the spark. A Fang caravan, laden with obsidian, is ambushed on the borderlands of the Dominion. No one knows whether it was bandits, overzealous soldiers, or deliberate provocation. But the effect is the same. The Dominion demands reparations. The Fang refuses. The Spire declares the conflict foretold in the heavens. The First Continental War begins. Armies clash across land and sea. Dominion firebrands hurl burning tar at Fang fortresses, but obsidian spears cut them down before they breach the walls. Fang warbands march east, seizing shrines to cut the Spire's influence. The Spire retaliates with holy war, its armies chanting as they march, believing each step sanctified. The earth itself seems to groan under the weight of their ambition. Cities burn, monuments crumble, fields are trampled into dust. Yet even in ruin, civilization advances. Siege towers rise from timber. Stone walls are reinforced with mud brick. War drums echo across valleys, their rhythms coordinating armies larger than any predator pack could ever imagine. And amidst the chaos, the mammals endure. Small primates pick over battlefields for scraps. They learn the dangers of fire and the promise of tools. They remain small, weak, hunted, but they are watching, always watching. The Age of Empires is no longer confined to valleys and rivers. It has become a contest of continents, of civilizations vying not only for survival but for dominance of the very world. And somewhere in this storm of fire, stone, and blood, the seeds of a truly global order are being sown. The war spreads like wildfire across the continents. No settlement is untouched, no river valley safe. For the first time in the Age of Dinosaurs, conflict is not local, but global. A storm of ambition, faith, and steel-sharp stone. The First Ember Dominion pushes northward with terrifying momentum. Their armies march beneath banners of crimson feather and soot, their firebrands hurling flaming pots of pitch into enemy camps. Entire forests are burned to starve their foes, rivers dammed to flood fertile plains. Cities that resist are reduced to ash. Those that submit are folded into the Dominion, their fires merged into the hearth eternal at the Empire's core. The Shattered Fang, however, refuses to break. Obsidian smiths work day and night, filling wagons with weapons. Their warbands are disciplined, their fortresses bristling with spear tips that gleam like black lightning. They perfect new tactics, shield walls made of hardened hides stretched over wooden frames, formations that blunt the Dominion's fiery assaults. Their armies fight with cold efficiency, every strike measured, every loss absorbed. And in the east, the Spire of Skybone watches. The Stone Speakers claim the heavens have revealed this war as a trial of faith. Their armies march not with hesitation, but with zeal, their chants shaking the very earth. They fight less to conquer than to purify, tearing down rival shrines, seizing relics, proclaiming their spiral as the only true path to eternity. For decades, the three powers grind against one another. Borders shift like sand in the wind. One season the Dominion takes a valley, the next, the Fang retakes it, only for the Spire to seize it in holy fervor. Generations are born into war, knowing no other rhythm than the clash of obsidian, the roar of fire, and the chance of faith. But no war can last forever. Attrition gnaws at even the mightiest empire. Fields lie fallow, caravans are raided, monuments crumble, armies starve, artisans falter, shrines fall silent, and into this exhaustion comes betrayal, the oldest weapon of all. A Fang city, long besieged by the Dominion, suddenly opens its gates, not to surrender but to reveal a pact. Its leaders have conspired with emissaries from the Spire. Together, they lure the Dominion's army into a trap, where flame is smothered by flooded trenches and obsidian spears rain down from hidden walls. An entire Dominion legion is annihilated. The news spreads like lightning. Allies of the Dominion falter, sensing weakness. Rebellions spark within its heartland. The shattered Fang seizes the moment, pushing south with brutal force, while the Spire proclaims the heavens themselves have judged the Dominion unworthy. The Ember Dominion collapses in fire and ruin, its once blazing banner reduced to scattered embers. But the war does not end. Now it is the Fang and the Spire who face each other, obsidian craft against divine faith. The Fang controls the weapons. The Spire commands belief. Each holds power the other cannot break. The conflict rages for another generation, until both sides, weary and hollowed, agree to a fragile peace. A treaty is carved into stone slabs and set within the Spire's shadow. The world will not be united, but divided. The Age of Three Crowns begins, an uneasy balance of fire, craft, and faith, each empire scarred but enduring. And in the quiet left by their exhaustion, small mammals creep closer to the edges of their cities. They scavenge, they imitate, they survive. For now they are overlooked, insignificant. But history has a long memory. The dinosaurs rule still, but for the first time, cracks run through the foundations of their empires. The Great War leaves scars across the continents. Blackened forests, toppled monuments, abandoned cities where only wind and insects remain. Yet from these scars grows something unexpected. With the fury of conquest spent, the empires turn inward, forced to find strength not in endless war, but in the forging of culture. In the former lands of the Ember Dominion, fire remains sacred, but no single banner unites them. Instead, dozens of successor states rise, each with its own hearth at the center of civic life. Fire is no longer merely a weapon or tool, it becomes symbol. Laws are proclaimed beside the flame, treaties sealed with smoke rising to the heavens. Philosophers of fire argue that flame mirrors the soul, fragile if untended, destructive if unchecked, eternal if passed from one generation to the next. Their writings, scratched into bark, bone, and stone, become the first stirrings of philosophy. The shattered Fang, though victorious in the war, transforms in peace. Obsidian smiths, freed from constant weapon-making, turn their craft to beauty. Blades become ceremonial, inlaid with dyes that shimmer in the light. Artisans carve intricate reliefs into stone walls, depicting the histories of their clans. Mathematics emerges from craft. Obsidian knappers, seeking precision, develop systems of measurement, laying the groundwork for geometry. Their cities become centers not just of weapons, but of learning. At the spire of Skybone, faith blossoms into sophistication. Stone speakers codify their chants into structured hymns, repeated in rituals that can last for days. They establish schools where young are taught to memorize sacred spirals, to trace their claws along etched stones, to learn the movements of stars that guide pilgrims. Astronomy emerges, cloaked in prophecy but grounded in careful observation. They divide time into cycles, predicting seasons with increasing accuracy. Trade resumes cautiously between the three. Caravans once again cross mountains and seas, bringing not only goods, but ideas. Fire philosophers debate with stone speakers about the nature of existence. Fang mathematicians share their measurements with shrine builders who adapt them to chart the heavens. Knowledge spreads more freely than weapons ever did. Daily life, too, grows richer. Farmers experiment with irrigation, carving canals through valleys. Domesticated hadrosaurs are bred not only for labor, but for gentleness, used as beasts of burden in markets. Art takes strange and wondrous forms, spirals of dyed feathers hung in doorways, bone flutes whose haunting cries echo across plazas, geometric carvings on walls that seem to vibrate in the sun. And yet, beneath this flowering of civilization lies unease. The balance of three is fragile. Border disputes simmer. Order. The Fang's control of Obsidian still breeds resentment. The Spire's claim to divine authority spreads unrest among its neighbors. The Dominion's successors whisper of lost glory, of a flame destined to rise again. Most of all, the Empires sense a troubling truth. Their civilizations, magnificent as they are, cannot remain isolated. Already, sailors experiment with larger rafts, daring longer voyages. Already, explorers bring back tales of distant lands beyond the horizon. Already, the first libraries of bone and bark begin to collect the memories of ages past. The Age of Three Crowns is brilliant but fragile. Like the fire philosophers say, a flame can warm or it can consume. And somewhere in the shadow of their greatness, mammals scurry still, watching, waiting, learning. Centuries pass. The Earth shifts once again, but this time not by asteroid or ice, but by sail and ambition. The Three Crowns, once content to glare at one another across borders, now cast their gaze outward. The rivers that carried trade now feed fleets. The seas, long barriers of foam and storm, are transformed into highways of discovery. It begins with the shattered Fang. Obsidian smiths, forever seeking sharper tools, develop hollowed logs bound with sinew into long, narrow boats. With sails of woven reed and hide, they cross waters wider than any had dared. They return with obsidian from distant volcanic islands, their blades harder, their prestige greater. Word spreads. The sea hides not only resources but worlds. The spire of Skybone, ever attuned to the heavens, adapts quickly. Their astronomer priests chart stars with precision, guiding fleets farther than memory alone could. Pilgrimage expands beyond land to sea, their faith spreading like a tide. On foreign shores, shrines are raised, spirals carved into stone to mark the reach of their god's embrace. The successor states of the Ember Dominion, though fractured, are bound by fire's restless nature. Some clans lash rafts into floating villages, carrying their flames across waves. They settle new coasts, carrying with them the old dream of unification, their banners smoldering against foreign skies. Exploration breeds riches, but riches breed envy. Soon the crowns no longer war only on land, they war upon the seas. Fleets ram against fleets, firepots hurled from deck to deck, obsidian-tipped spears piercing sails. Coastal towns are burned, harbors blockaded, islands seized and resettled. The oceans become battlefields, their waves red with conquest. Yet amid this chaos, wonders emerge. Navigators invent crude compasses from lodestones, guiding ships even beneath clouded skies. Cartographers etch maps on stretched hides, charting coasts with increasing accuracy. Mathematics flourishes, tied to navigation, giving birth to early concepts of longitude and latitude. Written symbols, once religious, begin to serve merchants and sailors. Literacy spreads, not just among priests or artisans, but among traders, captains, even common farmers. The world grows smaller, more connected. Exotic goods, new dyes, strange grains, feathers of unheard colors, circulate between continents. Languages mingle, ideas cross borders more swiftly than armies. But with connection comes contagion. Rival faiths, rival philosophies, rival claims of destiny. Each empire begins to dream not merely of dominance, but of global rule. The Fang whispers of a world sharpened to perfection under obsidian law. The spire preaches of a single faith binding all creatures beneath its spiral. The Ember successors, fractured but fiery, speak of restoring the Dominion and burning away all rivals until only one hearth remains. The fragile balance of the Three Crowns falters. The age of golden peace, if it ever truly was peace, begins to fracture. And beneath it all, hidden in jungles and mountains, the mammals continue their quiet ascent. Their hands grow deft, their eyes keen. They steal grain from storehouses, mimic tools abandoned on battlefields, and huddle around stolen embers. Still small, still weak, but evolving. The dinosaurs rule still, but their empires are stretching themselves thin, reaching for the horizon without realizing how fragile their foundations have become. The world is preparing for another great upheaval. The age of exploration does not remain an age of discovery for long. It hardens into conquest. The oceans, once unbroken and eternal, now teem with fleets. Trade routes become lifelines, ports become fortresses, and every island is a prize waiting to be claimed. It is inevitable that the ambitions of the three crowns collide. The Shattered Fang strikes first. Their obsidian fleets, swift and sharp, dominate the western seas. They seize volcanic islands rich with glassy stone, monopolizing the world's finest blades. Fang captains, their sails dyed black and red, enforce tribute from coastal towns. But in their hunger for control, they blockade trade bound for the Spire. The Spire of Skybone cannot allow this insult. Guided by the stars, their fleets sail forth, chanting hymns as they clash with Fang vessels. Battles rage beneath moonlit skies, obsidian spears shattering against hide-covered shields, firepots exploding in showers of flame. Each side claims divine sanction. Each side proclaims victory even in defeat. The Ember Dominion's heirs, fragmented though they are, seize their chance. Unified by charismatic war leaders who promise to restore the old Dominion, they descend upon the conflict like fire upon dry grass. Their fleets raid both Fang and Spire alike, burning ports, looting caravans, dragging entire coastal towns back into their Dominion hearths. What began as a duel between two powers becomes a three-way inferno. The First Global War has begun. For the first time, battles span continents. Armies march not only across valleys but across oceans. Colonies rise and fall within seasons. Cities change hands so often their inhabitants carve 3 sets of banners into their walls. The earth groans beneath the weight of ambition, and yet, in the very heart of destruction, civilization accelerates. Naval engineering surges. Ships grow larger, sturdier, capable of carrying hundreds across the seas. Weaponry evolves. Obsidian gives way to early experiments in metal as fangsmiths discover ways to hammer meteoric iron into crude blades. Strategy deepens. Armies learn formations on land and sea coordinated by drums and horns, their movements precise as tides. Communication transforms. Written symbols spread rapidly, carried by fleets to colonies, etched into bark scrolls that record treaties, war plans, and philosophies. The cost is staggering. Entire coastlines are abandoned, their people enslaved or scattered. Shrines topple into the sea, monuments shattered to deny enemies their pride. Fire scars jungles into wasteland, while starving herds trample fields into ruin. At the height of the war, 3 fleets converge at a narrow strait between continents. For 7 days, the battle rages, smoke blotting out the sun, the sea churning red. When it ends, no victor remains. Only wreckage drifting on the waves, corpses tangled in shredded sails. The strait earns a name whispered with dread, the Maw of Storms. The war drags for generations. None of the crowns achieve total victory. Exhaustion spreads like plague, hollowing empires from within. Rebels rise, colonies revolt, allies defect. By the war's end, the Fang have lost their obsidian monopoly. The Spire's faith is fractured by dissent, and the Dominion's heirs are united in name only. The First Global War ends not with a treaty, but with silence, a stalemate born of ruin. The world lies open, scarred but changed forever. And in the quiet after thunder, new questions emerge. What comes after war without winners? Can civilizations rebuild from such ruin, or will they collapse, leaving room for new rulers to rise from the shadows? Far from the centers of power, in jungles and savannas, the mammals continue their quiet climb. They grow bolder, venturing into abandoned villages, scavenging tools left in the ashes. Some even gather around fire pits long gone cold, staring into the embers as though remembering something older than memory. The dinosaurs still rule the earth, but their empires are not invincible. The cracks in the crown are widening. The silence after the First Global War is heavy, almost unbearable. Across the continents, smoldering ruins mark where once proud cities stood. Trade routes lie broken. Shrines toppled into rivers gather moss. Fleets rot at anchor, their sails torn, their crews long dead. The earth, weary of conquest, seems to rest. But rest is never permanent. Out of ruin, something stirs. In the mountains once held by the shattered Fang, scavengers dig through blackened battlefields, searching for obsidian among the wreckage. Instead, they stumble upon something stranger: lumps of metal, fused by fire and lightning strikes. These shards, though rare, are harder than obsidian, duller but unbreakable. Smiths experiment, hammering them with stone tools until sparks fly. It is slow, clumsy work, but the results are undeniable. Thus begins the Age of Metal. At first, the metal is meteoric, pulled from the sky itself. Spears tipped with it pierce where obsidian shatters. Blades last through battles without splintering. Slowly, knowledge spreads. Some rocks, when melted in fire, yield this same unbreakable substance. The secret of smelting is born. The Fang, weakened by war, seize upon this discovery with ferocity. Their obsidian smiths transform into metalsmiths, hammering crude iron into tools and weapons. Their forges glow day and night, consuming wood and charcoal by the ton. Entire forests vanish into smoke, fueling the hunger for progress. The spire of Skybone, threatened by this new craft, does not resist. It adapts. Their astronomer priests claim the discovery was foretold in the stars, that the heavens themselves gifted iron to their faithful. Under this divine guise, they establish vast forges beneath their spirals, guarded as holy sanctuaries. Pilgrims bring ore as offerings, swelling the spire's power once again. The Ember Dominion's heirs, fractured but fiery, are slower to adopt. Many cling to tradition, relying still on obsidian and fire. Yet ambitious war leaders see the danger. They raid Fang forges, seize spire caravans, and begin to build their own forges. Their hunger for reunion is rekindled, not with fire alone, but with steel. Metal changes everything. Fields are tilled with iron plows, doubling harvests. Axes fell forests at alarming speed, clearing land for new settlements. Fortifications grow stronger, their stones cut with precision. Weapons evolve: longer spears, curved blades, even primitive armor hammered from plates. Daily life shifts as well. Farmers carry iron sickles. Traders weigh goods with iron scales. Artisans shape jewelry from bronze and copper alloys. The old world of bone and stone gives way to something harder, sharper, more enduring. But with metal comes imbalance. Those who wield it tower above those who do not. Entire regions collapse under invasion, unable to resist iron-tipped armies. Old alliances falter as new powers emerge. The world trembles on the brink of yet another storm, one greater than any before. And in the shadows, the mammals learn again. They gnaw discarded scraps of cooked grain, nest in abandoned forges, watch with clever eyes as scaled hands hammer glowing metal. Their brains grow larger with each generation, their fingers more agile, their groups more coordinated. Still small, still weak, but restless. The dinosaurs have built wonders. They have conquered sea, shrine, and fire. Now they have forged iron from the earth itself. But with every leap, the cracks widen. Empires grow stronger, yet also more fragile, their hunger outpacing their stability. The Age of Metal has dawned, and with it the promise of greatness and the shadow of collapse. The clang of iron fills the world. Forges roar where once only fires crackled, and the air above every city carries the scent of smoke and ash. The Age of Metal does not remain an age of tools alone. It becomes an age of conquest. The shattered Fang, first to master smelting, rise once more from the ruins of the First Global War. Their armies march clad in crude iron armor, their weapons gleaming like midnight suns. Obsidian, once the pinnacle of craft, is relegated to ritual and ornament. Fang generals carve their names into history with blades that never break, pushing their borders outward with ruthless efficiency. The spire of Skybone, unwilling to yield, transforms iron into faith. Their priests declare it the blood of the heavens, fallen to earth as a gift to the devout. Entire rituals revolve around forging, chanting over molten metal, blessing armor with sacred ash. Their armies, armored in sanctified iron, march with zeal across the plains. They spread their faith as much by sword as by sermon, building spirals of stone in every land they conquer. The Ember Dominion's heirs, though fractured, rally behind a new banner, the Ashen Crown. A war leader unites rival clans, promising to restore the Dominion through iron as their ancestors once did with fire. His armies wield flaming tar alongside iron-tipped spears, their banners blazing against the night. Villages fall swiftly, their people forced to carry the Ashen Crown's mark, a spiral of soot upon the forehead. Three great powers again rise, but stronger, sharper, more dangerous than before. And unlike the first Age of Crowns, this time they are not confined to their homelands. Iron fuels expansion outward across seas and continents. Colonies sprout on foreign shores, defended by iron garrisons. Roads stretch across mountains, iron-shod beasts of burden pulling carts laden with goods. The world, once vast, begins to shrink beneath the weight of empire. Daily life bends beneath the power of iron. Farmers plow deeper, their harvests swelling, feeding cities of unprecedented size. Builders cut stone with precision, raising fortresses, aqueducts, and vast amphitheaters for ritual dances and public debates. Philosophers etch symbols into bronze tablets, preserving ideas that no oral chant could hold alone. Merchants weigh and stamp coins, iron discs that carry value from one empire's market to another's port. The dinosaurs are not merely surviving, they are thriving in the truest sense of civilization. Cities teem with tens of thousands. Empires span coasts and continents. History is no longer just memory, but written, etched, preserved. And yet the shadows grow longer. Iron is a gift, but it is also a curse. Wars grow deadlier, their tolls measured not in hundreds but in tens of thousands. Fields once fertile are stripped bare to feed armies. Forests vanish into smoke as forges devour wood. The empires stretch themselves thin, always hungering for more. More ore, more land, more tribute. In the silence of jungles, in the high mountains, the mammals remain. Their numbers swell. They grow bolder, creeping into the edges of abandoned villages, scavenging scraps of grain and metal. Some even learn to crack bones with stone, stealing marrow once ignored. Their hands, small but deft, mimic what they see. Their eyes gleam with the same curiosity that once lit the minds of feathered hunters. The dinosaurs rule the earth with fire, faith, and iron. Yet for all their glory, a question hums beneath the surface. How long can empires burn before their own flames consume them? The Age of Iron Empires has begun. For a time, it seems as though nothing can challenge the reign of the great iron empires. Their banners fly from coast to coast. Their cities gleam with monuments. Their forges roar like the hearts of volcanoes. The Age of Iron is not merely an age of conquest. It becomes an age of wonder. In the strongholds of the Shattered Fang, mathematics and engineering blossom. Obsidian smiths turned metalsmiths now measure not only blades, but bridges and aqueducts. Water flows across valleys in stone channels, feeding fields that stretch beyond the horizon. Cities rise with ordered streets, plazas echoing with debates where philosophers argue not about war, but about the very nature of truth. Geometry, astronomy, and early medicine flourish. The Fang begin to speak of law, codes etched into iron tablets binding rulers and subjects alike. The spire of Skybone answers with splendor of its own. Their temples tower higher than before, spirals of iron-tipped stone that scrape the clouds. Inside, murals of dyed feathers and inlaid bronze depict the cycles of the heavens. Their astronomer priests chart eclipses, predict seasons, and name the stars, cloaking science in the poetry of faith. Pilgrims flock to the spire from every corner of the world, bringing wealth and ideas in equal measure. The spire becomes not only a religious capital, but a cultural one, a beacon of song, art, and philosophy. The Ashen Crown, heirs of the Ember Dominion, shaped their empire with fire as their ancestors once did. They master metallurgy in a uniquely brutal way, forging weapons not only for conquest, but for spectacle. Amphitheaters ring with the clash of gladiatorial beasts, contests where warriors duel with flaming blades to honor the fire gods. Their cities burn with ritual flames that never die. Their leaders crowned not with gold, but with soot and iron circlets. Yet amidst this ferocity lies innovation. The Ashen Crown perfects siege warfare, building towers, rams, and engines that hurl flaming projectiles across walls. They become feared not only for their passion, but for their relentless ingenuity. Daily life for ordinary dinosaurs grows more complex and, in many ways, more secure. Farmers tend vast estates, their work eased by iron plows and irrigation. Artisans specialize in crafts, jewelers, potters, scribes. Markets overflow with goods from every corner of the world, dyes from jungles, shells from distant seas, grain from fertile valleys. Cities hum with a rhythm of work, trade, and ritual. Culture itself becomes a weapon of prestige. Music flourishes, bone flutes and hide drums creating haunting symphonies. Theater emerges, ritual dances evolving into dramas retelling history, philosophy, and myth. Writing spreads beyond priests and philosophers to merchants and even soldiers, carving records into tablets, hides, and metal plates. Knowledge no longer belongs to the few. It trickles downward, changing everything. For a moment, it seems as though the dinosaurs have achieved what no species before could: a stable, global civilization, resilient and radiant. The age of iron empires is a golden age, but golden ages carry within them the seeds of decline. Populations soar beyond what fields can sustain. Wars for resources erupt at the fringes. Forges devour forests faster than they can regrow, stripping the land. Faith fractures as philosophers challenge priestly authority, sowing dissent in the spire's heart. The Ashen Crown's brutality breeds resentment among the conquered, rebellions sparking in the shadows of their amphitheaters. Even the Fang, orderly and rational, find their laws tested as inequality festers in their vast cities. And beyond the glow of cities, beyond the reach of roads and ships, the mammals endure. Small primates, sharper with each generation, spread into every crack of the world. They live where dinosaurs cannot, eat what dinosaurs ignore, adapt in silence. They are not yet rivals. But history waits, patient and merciless. The iron empires blaze brilliantly, but every flame, no matter how bright, casts shadows. The question is no longer whether collapse will come, but when. The iron empires gleam at their height, but greatness carries weight. What was built on fire, faith, and iron begins to strain under its own enormity. The decline does not come with one single blow, but as a slow erosion, like rivers wearing down stone. In the shattered Fang, prosperity becomes imbalance. Their cities swell to monstrous size, their aqueducts feeding tens of thousands, yet the very order they prized begins to crack. Laws once carved in iron tablets for justice now serve only the wealthy. Corruption seeps into courts. Vast estates swallow farmland, driving small farmers into the cities where hunger festers. Their forges devour the forests so quickly that the air itself grows choked with ash. When famine comes, it is not the armies of rivals that break the Fang. It is their own people, rioting in the streets, demanding bread, demanding justice. The spire of Skybone suffers a different fracture. For centuries, their astronomer priests held power, claiming to read the will of the heavens. But their predictions falter. A great eclipse passes without the doom they promised. Crops fail despite assurances of plenty. Faith wavers, and with it, obedience. Philosophers, once tolerated at the edges, now openly challenge the stone speakers, claiming the heavens are not divine at all, but natural, predictable, mechanical. The spire becomes a battlefield not only of armies, but of ideas. Some cling to faith, others to reason, and between them cracks widen into chasms. The Ashen Crown, ever brutal, sows rebellion with its own hand. Their gladiatorial arenas, once spectacles of unity, become symbols of cruelty. Enslaved peoples rise in revolt, torching amphitheaters, toppling statues of soot-crowned rulers. Provinces secede, led by warlords who refuse tribute. The crown answers with fire, but the flames spread faster than they can contain. Entire colonies slip away, the dream of a reunited dominion burning itself to ash. The cracks deepen. Trade falters as roads crumble under neglect. Caravans vanish, seized by bandits or rebels. Piracy spreads across seas once dominated by fleets. Forges grow cold as wood becomes scarce. Knowledge, once spreading like fire, begins to flicker unevenly, bright in some places, extinguished in others. Yet even in decline, brilliance persists. In the Fang's crumbling cities, philosophers codify law into systems that will outlive their empire. In the Spire's divided plazas, astronomers discover patterns that hint at deeper truths of the cosmos. In the Crown's rebellious provinces, smiths experiment with alloys, blending copper and tin into bronze, iron into steel. Progress does not halt, but it no longer flows from empire. It bursts from the cracks of their collapse. And all the while, the mammals creep closer. They are everywhere now, in the trees of ruined roads, in the granaries of decaying cities, in the shadow of abandoned shrines. Some even share spaces with dinosaurs, tolerated as pests but quietly thriving. Their intelligence grows, their groups coordinate, their curiosity deepens. Where empires falter, mammals adapt. The dinosaurs still rule, but their crowns sit uneasily. Their cities are mighty, their armies vast, their philosophies profound. But they are stretched thin, their foundations eroded. The iron empires have not yet fallen, but the smell of smoke is already in the air. Collapse never comes all at once. It creeps, it cracks, it builds, until one day the weight is too great and the walls of history fall inward. The shattered Fang are the first to break. Once proud cities, their plazas filled with philosophers and artisans, become cauldrons of unrest. The famine riots grow into revolutions. Armies sent to crush rebellion turn their spears against their commanders. Provinces declare independence, guided not by kings but by councils of farmers and smiths. The Fang's capital, seat of order for centuries, is stormed and burned. Its great aqueducts shatter, and the rivers reclaim the streets. The empire dissolves into a patchwork of city-states, each clinging to fragments of Fang law and knowledge, but none able to rebuild the whole. The spire of Skybone fractures next, not by hunger, but by belief. The stone speakers, long the arbiters of heaven, are challenged openly by philosophers who proclaim the stars follow natural law, not divine decree. Faith splinters. Some cling to the spiral, others embrace reason, and many try to weave the two together. Civil war erupts, not just armies clashing, but brothers against brothers, cities against their own shrines. The spire itself, the towering spiral that had stood for centuries, is besieged, battered, and finally broken. Its upper stones tumble into the plains, leaving only a jagged stump. Without its symbol, the empire's unity shatters. The faithful retreat to mountain sanctuaries. The philosophers scatter to new schools in hidden valleys. The spire's empire dies, but its ideas scatter like seeds on the wind. The Ashen Crown fights hardest to endure, but fire consumes fire. Their brutality breeds endless rebellion. Provinces rise in revolt. Cities refuse tribute. Gladiators turn their weapons on their masters. The crown answers with iron and flame, but every victory costs more than it gives. Finally, a coalition of rebels, once slaves in the arenas, marches on the capital. They breach its gates, tear down the soot-circled throne, and extinguish the eternal flame. The crown is broken, its lands fragment into feuding warlord states, each claiming the legacy of the dominion, but none able to hold it. The iron empires are gone. In their place spreads chaos. Roads crumble, severing trade routes. Cities shrink, their plazas overgrown with weeds. Forges fall silent, knowledge of smelting preserved only in a few strongholds. Bandit kings and local warlords carve small domains from the ruins of greatness. It is a dark age, but not a void. Knowledge does not vanish, it hides. In the ruins of the Fang, fragments of law and geometry survive in city archives. In the shadow of the spire, philosophers guard their star charts like sacred relics. In the former lands of the crown, rebels turn arenas into workshops, where smiths quietly experiment with stronger alloys. The empires are dead, but their embers remain, glowing faintly. And in the silence left by fallen empires, the mammals move freely. They creep into abandoned plazas, nest in broken shrines, scavenge from empty granaries. They grow bold, learning to forage in groups, to communicate with greater complexity, to wield simple tools. Their rise is still hidden, small against the backdrop of dinosaur grandeur, but no longer impossible. The age of iron empires has ended in fire and ruin, but history is not finished. From collapse comes rebirth. And the question remains, when the next age rises, will it be dinosaurs who rule again, or something new waiting in the shadows? The world, once thunderous with empire, grows quiet. The great plazas lie cracked, the forges cold, the spiral shrines broken. Yet history does not stop, it changes shape. Out of the rubble of the iron empires, something new begins to grow. In the ruins of the shattered Fang, city-states rise again, smaller than the old empire, but vibrant. Each guards a fragment of Fang knowledge. One preserves geometry for measuring fields, another guards iron-smelting secrets, another keeps the tablets of law. They war with each other, yes, but they also trade, forming loose leagues where no empire can rise again. Their plazas are smaller, their armies lighter, but their minds are restless. From their independence sprouts innovation, as each city competes to outshine the others. Among the remnants of the spire of Skybone, faith and philosophy intertwine in strange ways. Some communities cling to the old stone speakers, rebuilding smaller spirals to keep their traditions alive. Others follow the philosophers, studying the stars as natural cycles, not divine omens. Most weave both together, shrines that double as observatories, priests who speak in hymns of law and reason. The spire as an empire is gone, but its legacy of thought lives on in scattered sanctuaries, whispering to future generations. The lands once held by the Ashen Crown are the most turbulent. Rebellions that destroyed the Soot Throne fracture into dozens of warlord states. Some are brutal, little more than raiding tribes. Others experiment with governance, councils of warriors or assemblies of elders. Here, fire remains the core of culture. Ritual flames burn in every village, carried in clay lamps across battlefields. The dream of dominion lingers, but no single ruler can seize it. Their lands are unstable, but also dynamic. A crucible where new ideas spark and vanish in rapid succession. This is not the brilliance of empire. It is smaller, rougher, fragile. Yet in some ways, it is freer. The age of iron empires has given way to an age of successors. States small enough to adapt, diverse enough to experiment, and hungry enough to try again. And in this quieter age, mammals thrive like never before. No longer crushed under the heel of vast armies, they spread boldly into abandoned ruins and neglected farmlands. Small primates learn to raid granaries, stealing grain to feed their young. Others grow adept at cracking bones left on battlefields, feasting on marrow. Their brains swell, their hands grow surer. In the forests and mountains, groups of mammals begin to shape stones, not just by accident, but by choice. Crude, yes, but deliberate. Dinosaurs, mighty still, hardly notice. To them, mammals remain pests at the edges of fields, scavengers in the shadows. Yet if one looked closely at the way mammals chatter to each other, pass scraps of food, or imitate the striking of stone, they would see the first sparks of something dangerous, something familiar. Civilization has fallen, but not vanished. It breathes again, smaller and humbler. The dinosaurs still rule, but the shadows are stirring. The centuries after the fall of the Iron Empires are an age of fragments. The world no longer bends beneath the weight of a single crown, but instead crackles with dozens of smaller powers. Some rise for a generation, only to vanish. Others endure, their roots deepening into soil watered with memory. In the former lands of the shattered Fang, city-states flourish in rivalry. They compete in philosophy and craft as much as in war. One city builds towers of stone etched with precise star charts. Another perfects steelmaking, producing blades that outlast all others. Rivalries spark innovation. Water-driven mills grind grain. Canals carry crops farther inland, and public squares echo with debates that ordinary citizens can attend. Knowledge, once hoarded, begins to spill outward. Among the remnants of the spire of Skybone, a quieter brilliance takes hold. Their sanctuaries, half shrine and half observatory, become centers of learning. Priests and philosophers merge into a new class, the star scholars who teach both ritual and reason. They preserve scrolls of bark and plates of bronze, compiling centuries of astronomy, geometry, and myth into vast archives. The spire is gone, but its spirit survives in the pursuit of understanding. The successors of the Ashen Crown burn fiercely but briefly. Warlord states rise and fall with speed, each crowned in soot and iron, each consumed by rebellion within a generation. Yet their chaos breeds novelty. One province experiments with democracy, assemblies of citizens voting by raising colored feathers. Another turns arenas into forums for public law, where disputes are settled before crowds rather than in blood. Few of these experiments endure, but they plant seeds, scattered across a restless land. And in the forests, mountains, and ruins, the mammals stir. No longer shadows, they now claim niches once overlooked. Small primates spread in waves, moving in packs larger and more coordinated than before. They forage with purpose, using stone flakes sharpened by repeated strikes. They huddle around embers stolen from abandoned camps, learning to tend small fires of their own. At first, the dinosaurs do not notice. A mammal with a stone chip is no threat to an ironclad warrior. But in hidden valleys, something is happening that even the mightiest raptor cannot stop. Memory. The mammals begin to pass down skills across generations. Fire tending, tool making, coordinated hunting, all are taught, not just stumbled upon. It is the faintest echo of what the dinosaurs achieved long ago, but echoes can grow louder. In some abandoned plazas, primates climb the broken walls of shrines, chattering in patterns that sound almost like debate. In others, they dig shallow pits to trap smaller animals, using teamwork that mimics the strategies of feathered hunters. Their rise is slow, almost invisible against the brilliance of dinosaur successors. But it is steady. The dinosaurs still build, still rule, still dream. But for the first time in millions of years, another lineage is on the same path. Two fires now burn on Earth. One blazes high, ancient and scaled. The other is small, new, and fragile, but it is growing. The mammals do not rise in a single place nor under a single banner. Their ascent is scattered, fragile, like sparks blown across dry grass. But sparks, if left untended, can become fire. In the valleys once ruled by the shattered fang, small primates form larger groups than ever before. No longer just families, but tribes. They gather near riverbanks where fish are plentiful and build shelters of woven branches. With stone flakes, they scrape hides and split bones. With fire, stolen from old dinosaur camps, they roast meat and soften roots. Their chatter grows more complex, their cries layered with tone and rhythm. These are not yet words, but they are more than calls. They are symbols. In the shadow of ruined shrines of the Spire of Skybone, another group thrives. Here, mammals imitate what they see in stone. They scratch marks into bark and bone, repeating shapes until they remember them. These marks mean nothing at first, but slowly, clumsily, they become a proto-writing, a way to remind themselves of where food was hidden or when the rains will come. What the dinosaurs once perfected over ages, the mammals begin to rediscover in miniature. In the chaotic lands of the Ashen Crown's successors, mammals adapt differently. There, constant war among warlords leaves corpses and ruins aplenty. Mammals scavenge freely, learning courage in the face of danger. They trail armies, waiting for battle to end, then pick bones clean. They steal scraps of food, shards of pottery, even discarded tools. Some grow bold enough to mimic tactics, surrounding prey, using thrown stones to confuse it before the final strike. The warlords barely notice, but in the shadows of their brutality, a new cunning takes shape. Step by step, the mammals change. Their bodies remain small, but their brains grow larger, more intricate. Their fingers, nimble and grasping, learn precision. Their eyes, sharp and forward-facing, track prey with patience. They become not only survivors, but learners. Creatures who change not only through evolution, but through memory passed down. And so, the first proto-cultures emerge. Tribes of river primates that share fire and tools. Cliff dwellers who scratch marks into stone as memory. Scavenger packs who imitate the strategies of larger hunters. It is fragile, so fragile, but it is real. The dinosaurs, mighty still, remain unaware. Their successor states bicker, their shrines glitter, their forges roar. To them, mammals are pests in the granaries, scavengers at the edges, vermin to be burned when too bold. None imagine that these tiny creatures might be more than nuisance. But history has a way of hiding its greatest revolutions in the smallest of hands. For now, two civilizations walk the earth. One ancient, scaled and dominant. The other young, soft-furred, and overlooked. But the gap between them grows smaller with every generation. The mammal's world is small, but within its narrow borders, something vast is stirring. Where once they scurried, silent and instinct-driven, now they pause to wonder. At the riverbanks, the tribes of firekeepers gather each night around their stolen flames. They feed the embers with twigs, huddle close against the darkness, and begin to chant. The sounds are crude, little more than repeated cries, but they have rhythm. The young learn the chants as easily as they learn to walk. These are not words yet, but they are memory encoded in sound, a way to pass knowledge beyond a single life. On the cliffs, the mark scratchers expand their experiments. At first, their symbols are simple, lines for food caches, circles for watering holes. But over generations, the scratches grow stranger. Spirals, stars, and shapes with no clear meaning. These become talismans, scratched into stone before hunts, or etched on bones placed in shallow graves. The first seeds of myth are planted. Among the scavengers of the warlands, ritual emerges in blood. After battles between dinosaur warlords, the mammals creep into the fields. They do not simply scavenge, they perform. Stones are stacked, bones arranged in patterns, as though honoring the fallen. They gather around carcasses, touching their foreheads to skulls before feasting. These gestures mean nothing practical, but they bind the group, giving shape to fear and reverence. The myths grow. Fire becomes a living spirit, its crackle a voice in the night. Stones etched with spirals are said to guide the dead to safety. Skulls of predators are placed at the edge of camps to ward off their kin. What began as instinctive mimicry of dinosaur ritual now takes on a life of its own. The mammals have not only tools and fire, they have symbols. Their communication grows sharper. Cries become patterns. Patterns become proto-words. A rising sound means danger. A descending sound means safety. Objects earn names. Places earn sounds, repeated by the group. Language is forming, halting and broken, but language all the same. And with language comes story. Around the fires, elders repeat cries that mimic thunder, rain, and beasts. They gesture with their hands, shaping air into meaning. The young listen, wide-eyed, learning not just the world, but an interpretation of it. Myths spread faster than genes, giving identity where once there was only survival. For now, their societies are fragile, always threatened by hunger, predators, and the shadow of scaled empires. But something fundamental has shifted. The dinosaurs rule the earth with their iron empires and crumbling crowns. Yet in the cracks, the mammals are building something subtler, something more dangerous. Memory, ritual, story. Civilization in fur is awakening. For countless generations, the mammals lived unnoticed, gnawing in granaries, stealing scraps from battlefields, scurrying beneath the claws of empires. But now something changes. At first, it is only whispers. Farmers in the fertile valleys of a Fang successor state complain of pests too bold to be ordinary. Stores of grain vanish not in handfuls, but in sacks. Traps are dismantled, not sprung. In one village, clay jars of water are found cracked with stones placed deliberately at their base. The farmers laugh uneasily. Clever vermin. In the spire's sanctuaries, star scholars recording the heavens hear rumors from travelers. Small furred creatures gather in groups, carrying embers and hollowed sticks, as though mimicking the sacred fire processions. At first, the priests dismiss it as blasphemous coincidence, but the reports multiply. Some even claim to have seen the mammals scratching marks into bark, spirals eerily like those etched on shrine walls. The Ashen Crown's warlords are the first to take notice with wrath. Their scouts return from the wilds with tales of ambushes. Packs of mammals hurling stones from trees, driving lone travelers into pits. Laughable at first, until one warband loses several soldiers in a single night raid. The mammals do not flee in panic like vermin. They fight, coordinated, and they win. The warlords order culls, sending fire to forests where the mammals gather. But the creatures vanish into cracks and shadows, reappearing when the flames die down. Slowly, unease spreads. The dinosaurs, masters of the earth for tens of millions of years, find themselves unsettled by something smaller than their hatchlings. Not dangerous, not yet, but strange. Wrong. Philosophers debate the matter. Some argue the mammals are simply evolving, just as dinosaurs once did. Others see them as an omen of decline, a shadow creeping at the edge of greatness. Priests call them mockeries of the divine order, pests imitating what they cannot understand. But a few, quiet, cautious, wonder if these furred scavengers might be something more. And still, the mammals grow. Their tribes build rudimentary villages of branches and hides near rivers, with fire kept alive at their centers. They hunt together, bringing down prey larger than themselves with stones, fire, and coordination. They tell stories by firelight, shaping identity through sound and gesture. The first true societies of mammals have begun. The dinosaurs notice, but too late to stop it. Their empires are fractured, their energy spent on war, rebellion, and survival. None can afford to turn fully toward this new, creeping threat. For now, the scaled rulers still tower, still build, still command. But the furred shadows are rising. The long monopoly of dinosaurs over thought, over culture, over civilization is ending. A rival is stepping onto the stage of history,